So this lecture is a case study about seals. Now, this isn't a seal, this is a sealing. See here, this is on the tomb of Tutankhamun and shows that this door is shut. Doesn't work very well as a lock, but you can tell that when someone's gone through it or not. So sealing things is very important to show it's still as it was when the owner left it. This is quite an early one. This is like 7,000 years old. And you can see that whatever was in this vessel was sealed with this lump of clay, and then stamp seals were used to seal the clay. These are probably the same kind of stamp seals from 5,000 years ago or more. They're made of chlorite and found in Western Iran. There was a lot of chlorite in Western Iran, so it's a very popular local material. This one is roughly contemporary, is made of gypsum, Mesopotamian alabaster. It's from southern Iraq. And so again, it is a stamp seal. So stamp seals are very nice. You can see the materials in these early stamp seals, there's gypsum and chlorite, are very soft. So these materials are quite easy to work. Now, as recording things developed, then putting seals on your documents became increasingly important. You see here this much later tablet, the envelope of a tablet has a cylinder seal rolled across the outside, and so you know when it arrives that this has not been tampered with since the person first wrote the document inside it. So we first see cylinder seals in the Uruk period. This is quite a nice one. They're typically very large. This one's about 8.5 centimeters high, and they're not perforated through the middle. They're not like a bead. They usually have a knobbly thing at the top. Typically they're made of something relatively soft. And of course the thing about cylinder seals is you could have a very long seal. In fact, you could just go on and seal the entire world if you were so inclined. But what's often interesting on some of these are the things that are depicted, and I'll refer to that periodically. These, for instance, are interesting, and you can see they're little buildings with tall things, with round things on them. This is another one. You can see this has a bit of the calcite in this case is forming the knobbly bit at the top. And they have these strange columnar things that get narrower and go weird at the top. All of this is probably reeds, because all these southern Iraq Sumerian type people lived amongst the marshes or next to the marshes where there's a great deal of reeds available, and they would have made very nice buildings. And so you can see how you could make tall columns, use the reeds to make round things and bend it over and do all sorts of weird things with this material. So those cylinder seals are made of calcite. So you can see it's getting slightly harder, less than a copper coin, but harder than a fingernail. With the Uruk expansion of this time, these cylinder seals spread over much of Mesopotamia and became pretty much the way of sealing things. These are quite interesting. These are actually the most common type of sealing, not of seals, of sealing. And so they're diverse, but quite similar, and very, very common as seals, but not as sealings rather, but not as seals. And so that begs the question, why? Why there's so many sealings, but we aren't finding the seals? And I usually ask the class this question, why do you think that is? And sometimes somebody says, it's because the seals were made of something which has rotted away, which is probably what happened. So they may have been made of reeds, for instance, or some other material which rotted away, and all that we have left are the sealings, not the seals. So in the succeeding Jemdet Nasr period, we have sort of short, squat cylinders. And in this period, cylinder seals go on beyond Mesopotamia and Iraq to Egypt and Syria. There's a lot of drill work on these. So you can see a drill has been used to do much of this design. And here, in fact, is an Egyptian cylinder seal. So around the Middle East, cylinder seals became the main way of sealing documents. So this is how you make a cylinder seal. You start off with a lump of rock and you saw it into bits, break it into bits. But basically you have something that you can eventually grind down into a cylinder. You will want to pierce it. This will be done alternately at each ends. There's actually a good way to see it if you're looking at a fake cylinder seal, as modern cylinder seals will be drilled right the way through in one go, whereas the ancient ones would have been done with like flint or something like that, and you'd start at one end and then start at the other. Then it would be decorated. This is a drill, and it might have been suspended like this. It's actually an example of one like this. Here is an archaeological example of that, where someone has been grinding things that will be useful for cylinder seals later on. This man's actually drilling beads, but it shows how the bow drill works. This is how the drill, or one of the ways a drill would work to drill out the seal or to work the seal. And there are grinding wheels. So again, this is using a bow, and the bow goes around here, and you make it go backwards and forwards, and in a reciprocal manner, it goes backwards and it goes forwards, and will grind what you hold against it. So this is a grinding wheel. So this could be made of something which is coarse, or it could be something like copper, which you've loaded with a grit, which will grind away what it is you're trying to grind. Here are photographs taken from an experiment at recreating in scanning electron microscope what these different appearances are. See here, this is experimental, and this is actually on a seal. This is drilled with a handheld flint. And you can see this looks rather like that. This is drilled with a copper drill with emery on it. Remember, emery is a very hard material. And this is the actual seal, so it looks quite similar. This one is drilled with a copper drill that was regularly flattened, also with emery as the grinding medium. And so whether you actually flatten it periodically or not will have a different result. So they did this on a number of different techniques. So you can see this one has been chipped away quite a lot, probably with flints like this. This one has been filed. You can see that the cuts are very straight. This has been drilled. Here's another bow drill, and you can see all these concentric forms are illustrative of a drill being used. This is actually quite interesting. It's a cylinder seal which was unfinished, and you can see a drill has been used to start off this figure, but it was never finished, and it was eventually intended to look more like one of these other ones. Here is a cylinder seal cut. You can see the round wheel, the wheel cutting will be from something like this. So this is again sort of like a grinding wheel and a drill, and the bow will go backwards and forwards, and so this will go around one way and then around the other and work as a grinding wheel on this end and a drill at the other. This one's quite interesting. It's made of transparent rock crystals, so it's completely transparent, and so you can easily see that it's been drilled from one end and then they drilled the other. So cylinder seals became the big thing in ancient Mesopotamia. This is from the early dynastic period, and shows you what they kind of like to put on their cylinder seals, which was combat scenes. Lots of combating going on. You have people fighting animals and each other, and lots of fun stuff. The other thing they liked was real fun stuff, which was party scenes. And so here you can see the owner probably of this lapis lazuli seal, Puabi, in the middle of a social gathering. And here she is dead. She's dead in this tent here. And all these people are not going to have a good day because they're about to be killed and buried with Puabi. Not a great job description, if you ask me. So lapis lazuli is made of lazulite and calcite, as I've told you previously. And so it actually is quite hard in places and not very hard in other places. This is another one of these from from southern Iraq. This is made of calcite. And you can see, again, it's another party scene. And you can see here they're drinking beer out of a big jar with a straw. Sounds like a lot of fun. So with the succeeding Akkadian period, we have different types of cylinder seal. Serpentine was very popular. If you remember from the last lecture, serpentine is indicative of parts of the earth where you have oceanic crust being thrust up onto the surface, or along the Zagros thrust. In Cyprus and in Oman, there will be quite a lot of serpentine. And this also shows control over the copper trade. So this is associated with that, but it also makes quite nice seals. Unfortunately, this particular one isn't serpentine. It's a green stone, which basically means it's a stone that is green. But it shows you what the Akkadians went into in their cylinder seals was a lot of their deities. They had all these celestial deities that they like to depict. And so you have, here is Ishtar, and here is Shamash with his little saw cutting his way through the mountains, and here is Ea, who is the source of water, and this other chap who has two faces. And so you can see they're up in the mountains, because this was a big Sumerian thing, which is quite relevant to, or Mesopotamian thing I should say, to the archaeology of stuff, is that the Mesopotamians thought that all good things came from the mountains. And of course that obviously includes the gods, who clearly lived in the mountains, and trees. There's a cute little tree here, and also water, but also things like the stone that they make them things out of. This is another Akkadian seal. This one actually is made of serpentine and shows the other main type of seal they had, which is a presentation scene. And so here you have a bunch of people, including this cricket man, whatever he is, who are introducing another person to the major deity. So here's Ea again. In the Ur-3 period, this becomes more stylized. This is chlorite, so it's very soft, easy to work. And in this you have probably the owner being introduced to the deity by this person, Llama. So Llama was the introductory deity who would introduce people to the deity. And here she is again. So here you can see being introduced, and with a monkey. This one's hematite. Hematite is quite hard. So here you can see you need something harder to grind it. You don't actually need anything harder. What you need is at least something as hard and a lot of patience. But hematite is at least softer than quartz. So that would take a lot of work, but it's doable. Of course, emery is even harder, so that would be a very useful material if you could get it. So here we have another presentation scene, another hematite cylinder seal. And here Llama is like pushed to the side, and the owner of the seal is stepping forward now. And Llama is less important. These are actually from somewhere else. These are from Syria, from Aleppo. And what's interesting about them is their influence from Egypt. They get a lot of things like the winged sun disk, which are very popular in Western Syria and became very influential later on. Here is actually an Egyptian cylinder seal. They would have made them out of various materials. This is glazed steatite, so it's a talc-based rock which has been fired. It helps like develop the glaze on it, but also makes it very hard, so it makes it very useful. In about the Middle Kingdom, or beginning of the Middle Kingdom, we get the introduction of Scarab Seals, which are become the most popular form of seals in Egypt. They stopped using the cylinder seals so much, and scarabs became very popular. So in the Middle Assyrian period, we get a lot of what we call hard stones. This is Chalcedony, which is quartz, microcrystalline quartz, and a lot of what we call hard stones are actually varieties of quartz. And so you can see what the Middle Assyrians like were these running creatures. So again, it makes this rather nice continuous frieze of running horses with bird feet. So here is quartz. So this is now one of the hardest materials you'd want to make a cylinder seal out of. Here's chalcedony, agate, flint, and chert are all quartz, and they're all hards of 7, quite hard. So with this, you'll probably need emery or a lot of patience. Here is another one. This was made of obsidian, which is probably as hard as quartz. And again, you can see it makes, if you roll it out, it makes this rather nice frieze of charging chariots. Really quite nice. So the Neoassyrians would also continue making cylinder seals with these hard stones, and also continue making cylinder seals with the celestial deities they were keen on. Here is Ishtar again, standing on a lion with a bow and maces and quivers and really looking for trouble. Oh, this one is garnet. So quite often, particularly in Mesopotamia where there is no actual rock, not a lot of rock anyway, they will get pebbles from the stream beds or quite large pieces of rock, and these are used for all sorts of things. I'll be talking more about procurement of stone later on, but this garnet, you see, is actually quite hard, so it'll make quite a nice thing. This is Neoassyrian, and you can see here on this carnelian seal the winged sun disk that was originally came from Egypt and then became very popular in Syria, is also very popular amongst the Neo-Assyrians, who use it as the basically the godmobile of their main deity. Here's the Tree of Life, of course. Oh, yes, there he is. So the Neo-Assyrians were succeeded by the Neobabylonians. This is something interesting. Here is this creature. It's the body of a lion with wings and the head of a human. So, however, the Neobabylonians started getting into stamp seals. Cylinder seals were starting to become less popular, and so it was the stamp seal that was the way of the future. This one from contemporary Anatolia, from the Urartian civilization, combines both. It's a cylinder seal and a stamp seal, so they're hedging their bets here. However, with the Achaemenid Empire, which basically covered all of this area, they were traditionalists, and so they went back to cylinder seals and recording on cuneiform tablets in a big way. And so here we have a Achaemenid cylinder seal made of chalcedony, and very nice. Here's another quite nice one, blue chalcedony, probably imported from India. Again, the Indian influence, the Egyptian influence here, you see. And here again we have an Achaemenid cylinder seal with godmobile on it. Ahura Mazda, this chap is, though, their god. So cylinder seals also became very popular in Phoenicia. This is quite a nice Phoenician Scarab Seal, which was donated to the Israel Museum, presumably found in Israel, and was eventually read to say it belonged to someone called Jezebel. And it probably was the seal of someone of that rank, so this may actually be the seal of Jezebel, the wife of King Ahab of Israel, who died very badly in 842 and is thought to be like one of the most horrible women of all time, when she was probably just like doing her best for everybody. But here you can see again that lion body creature with the wings and the human head. Very, very popular in Phoenicia, where it protected the throne of God. And here we have again the winged sun disk. The winged sun disk actually became the seal of the king of Judah here. This is just the sealing, we don't have the seal. So, as time progresses, stamped seals become really the only thing people care about. You have stamped seals which are beads, and you have stamped seals which are probably mounted on something. This is quite a big one at 4.7 centimeters, a bit big to be in a signet ring, but signet rings become very, very popular. And so these become the main type of seal from there on. So, what I hope you've gained from this is it's quite interesting to see how stuff is made of stuff that changes through time through various means. One is control over the raw materials. At a certain time they had access to chlorite or to quartz imported possibly from India, to serpentine imported from the highlands, to hematite imported from the highlands. And also, as time went, I hope you noticed that it went higher up the Mohs scale of hardness. So there you go. That's similar to seals and seals generally, and that's it for now. Thank you.